Wonderful. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are tuning into from wherever you are in the globe. I'm Sandra Horton, and I'm joined by Dr. Sujata Ives. We are live on a wonderful Sunday, and this is episode number 4 in Activate Success, the tips, tools, and insights to be a leader in your niche. So I'm so excited. I love when we get to come together. We have a whole bunch more still coming, Sujata. So why don't we jump in and introduce ourselves, and then I'll go into kind of more of that formal introduction. Over to you, Sujata.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm Sujata, and I am the president of the Maryland Career Development Association, the International Committee Chair of the American Counseling Association, and also the Program Committee Co-Chair of the Asia Pacific Career Development Association.
Oh, thank you, Sujata. And a little bit about myself. I'm Sandra Horton. I have 25 plus years and counting in the change management, leadership development field. And I love to create pathways of change for leaders and organization, one leader, one organization at a time. And I'm certified with my MA in leadership in pro-site change management, emotional intelligence. So today, this is our 4th segment. And previously, we talked about a lot of important things. We've talked about the 3 core pillars of our Ives Horton model, which is the self-discovery, change readiness, and sustainable impact. But we began with number 1, the self-discovery. And within the self-discovery, we talked about the 4 essential questions, which is really, really important. So we're always reminding those listeners to go back within and to take the time to really explore those again. Those essential questions are the beginning, that starting point for us to move forward. But today is chapter 4 in our amazing book. Now, Sujata, I'm going to share a little bit of story because I wanted to kind of set this up in a way that may resonate for some individuals. And as we get into the facts and research and why that's so important, as someone who is extroverted, who's someone who likes to go on the fly and likes to really be able to shift and move and be able to have that fluidity in how I see the world and how I experience the world, how I behave. This particular piece has been the number 1 fundamental awakening, I would say, for myself. And I'm using that word personally and powerfully, because when we understand the power of research, understand the importance of how we think, the literature behind decisions, we bring that into our leadership, guess what? We can still be very open and be able to move and be able to be ourselves and our personality, but it's grounded professionally in evidence. It's grounded in theories that help inform our actions. So this is a really important chapter, and one that maybe perhaps I had a little bit more of a stickiness to kind of get into, but I think it's really important. And having gone through university, and welcome to those who are listening now or will listen to us later, we just have to really look at ourselves and say, hey, this may not be my easy place. But for yourself, Sujata, this may be, hey, I love this. I'm a scientist. This is my happy place. This is where I want to go.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Exactly, Sandra, so well put. This chapter 4, is the demarcation of the 2 aspects of the book. The first part of the book is getting started. We got you started in chapter 1 by telling you what was coming. Chapter 2 with the essential questions. Last week, chapter 3 with relationships, because we're putting a great emphasis in this book on relationships. So given chapters 1, 2, 3, chapter 4 now gets you ready for the rest of the book, chapters 5 through 15, which are rooted in foundational theories through facts and research.
Yes, and I think that's one of the real strengths of this book. It is evidence-based, and we begin, and I want to kind of jump into some of these theorists that are fundamental to the work that we've put together here. And for my life, and I can only speak from my lens, because my voice is my voice, your voice is your voice. One of the foundational theories, though, is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I know that term, that name really resonates around the globe. It's a fundamental theorist that really transformed our globe in how we function. And it's a theory that works from the bottom up, which is different, but the bottom up. And importantly, that it really helps us to look at how we move through our lives. And so we always begin, and I think pretty well most people know those theories, but it really does begin with that physical, biosocial, like the biological needs, our physiological needs for water and food and sustenance to keep ourselves alive. And then we move into that next level of safety, which for some, and particularly if you've had, trauma or some family situations, or there's concerns, like especially now around the globe, safety is a real concern for so many people. And we won't go there, but I think it's important that particularly now is relevant around safety. And as we're moving and growing through these needs, our need beyond just our physiological, our safety, we get into the belongingness, which is really that sense of coming into a group, of feeling that you belong somewhere. And for my story, this was a big piece. And I really want to, just anchor into that piece for a moment, because belongingness can show up in different ways. But we need to be mindful that it is a key driver. It's a need that we all have as humans. And as we evolve, we begin to really come forward with our own self-esteem, our abilities, knowing that, hey, I've got this, I can do this, I have the capacity to be able to move and to grow and to live my life. And the need is to have that self-esteem. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. And then we move up to the highest level, which is self-actualization. And actually, later we'll talk about transcendence, because that's a newer one that's added even on top of self-actualization. And self-actualization is that opportunity, and again, we'll dive into that, of really standing in that ability to have, hey, I've done this. I'm living the way that I really have worked my whole life towards. Like, I'm self-actualized. I know myself. I'm giving of myself, and we've moved up that hierarchy so we can give back even more to others. And that moves into transcendence, which is the newest level that was added to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Sujata, if you want to, let's dive in a little bit more about some of these aspects, or if you wanted to add anything to it. I just kept it really high level in terms of those stages. I think it's important.
Sure. Yes. Maslow was a humanist. Mm-hmm. And that's my approach to life, to counseling, to psychology, is through humanism, that man can and will do good given the chance. Mm-hmm. So there's hope here. And as you mentioned, the different levels of Maslow, I mean, the safety issue, which is so important in terms of nation systems, but also in terms of workplace violence or sexual harassment and so forth. So safety becomes very important in the workplace as well as personal life. And so the premise of Maslow's theory is you cannot go up to the next level unless the previous level has been established. Mm-hmm. And that's really key, because when we think of his very first plea is for those physiological needs. Those people who do not have food, water, clothing, shelter, they're not going to be thinking about transcendence unless those needs are met. Mm-hmm. So then, of course, like you said, safety, belongingness, self-esteem, all those things, but we have to meet those from the bottom up. Yes. But the important point here is This is the foundation, the foundational theory of this book, because this is the theory that has led us to a construct that we developed called the empathy ethic.
Yes, thank you so much, Sujata. And again, for those who are listening live, welcome. Thank you so much for popping in and for tuning in. I think that's the power of, we're coming live and on multiple platforms, and to really bring this message forward. And we want to reach out to you, to invite you into this invitation, and to ask yourself, like right now, where would you actually see yourself on Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Are your needs truly being met? Have you ever considered that? And I'm going back a little bit to my story, which we share in our 4 essential questions. If you've had trauma or other circumstances in your life, and some of those areas can be impacted, it can delay some of your other development. Now, I know we wanted to kind of look at some of the other theorists that are coming alongside, so we can expand your knowledge and understanding of yourself. This is about you. This is about yourself to be a leader in your niche. So Sujata, where else do we want to kind of dive into? Because there's so many things about the different development stages I think that the listeners would find really interesting in this piece.
Right. So, of course, we could spend hours on Maslow's theory, but our intention this morning is to talk about what's in this chapter. So we're going to give you little snippets of everything that's in this chapter and those foundational theories. And the reason why we do this is because there are people that have very strong beliefs or opinions or conjectures, assumptions that go into who they are. That sum total is called schema. And we talked about that last week and the week before. That schema, however, that drives your behavior, it must be inspected, because those beliefs that you have, those assumptions that you have, may not be rooted and grounded in something viable and reliable. Right. So this is why it's so important, this chapter on theories, because we didn't want to bring you a book based on our opinions or beliefs or assumptions. We wanted to take a belief or take an assumption and see how it's rooted through empirical evidence. So, of course, we started with Maslow, but the other one that we felt was important was the lifespan development, human development theory. And there are 2 of those that we bring to you in this chapter. One is by Erickson and one is by Piaget. So as you are moving through your lifespan stages, your personality is fluid. It's going to change. Your temperament doesn't change, but your personality is fluid. So it's going to change based on what you go through, okay, through life, happenstance, or circumstances. You are evolving. Your opinions, your biases, your schema, that will also change along with what's happening to you. So, a belief will remain a belief for everybody unless it's tried and tested and is replicable. So that's the scientific method. And that's what this chapter.
I love that. And I love that, Sujata. And, I want to kind of tap into what you were talking about a little bit earlier, because we kind of touched on that about the whole personality. So Costa McCrae's personality theory is foundational because we're a good example, aren't we? Extrovert, and Sujata is a introvert. But we share these commonalities, don't we? Like we have our common same needs. We have needs that are basic. That's why we started with wonderful Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And as we grow, we're still going to develop. We're still going to follow these pathways to, develop. That's what we do. And so we're just bringing that to your awareness that there are uniquenesses, obviously, between how I love energy and how I consume energy, and how you perhaps have a different way of looking at it as an introvert, and the impacts and on you from energy. And I think that's a key piece in the workplace, that even having understanding of that theory is really, really important, because I know with my powerful personality, sometimes I gotta bring it back, just, and that's where we need to be very observant and go back into understanding our schema and things that we talked about in earlier chapters. See how we're, as Sujata always says, we're connecting the dots here. We're connecting the dots and just bringing this to your consciousness. And again, thank you for those who are listening live. That's so much fun. Thank you. Happy Sunday. And the other one I wanted to bring up, and again, jump in, Sujata, if something about the personality, because we could go into a whole segment on personalities and how, they show up differently and the needs and things like that. But the other one that comes to mind is about the social development, because there's a lot of conversation with the work and Brofenbrenner's work about social development and the impact of parents and family and our cultural, religious backgrounds, things like that, and how that impacts the individual. And so I just wonder what your thoughts were on that, because we do talk about that. We shared that theory in this chapter 4.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Yeah, so Bronfenbrenner's theory is an ecosystem theory. So in the middle is the baby, the individual, you. And his circles, his ecosystem radiates outward as you get more and more influences. So, i.e., from your parents, from your siblings, teachers, the community, the library, the books, the music, the social media, so forth. So all of these influence you. And so, where is your attention going? Where is your awareness going? What you absorb is going to go into the brain here to create who you are, how you behave towards the world.
Mm-hmm. And it's so important. And again, we're not going to dive into a lot of depth with these, but it's just for an invitation for you to, let's consider this. Is there something there that maybe I want to learn? And this is, again, what we're doing here this morning. So another one that also comes up for me is, and I love Martha Nussbaum's beautiful capacity theory. And I always kind of chuckle at myself. They always make the most interesting names for the theorists. I'm like, what? There's a couple in here in our book that it takes a bit to kind of get your mouth around them, but their impact is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And diving into this, and this is really your wheelhouse. This is your jam. This is kind of Sujata's world. And so that's why I'm asking Sujata to kind of add a few little, nuggets,
Sure.
into this piece this morning, because, this is your work. This is what you do. And with her, I really like, for me personally, it's about capacity, and it's about your self-discovery. It's about having, beyond that, just having the ability to know you can grow, you can actually bring in, for myself, this is not her theory, but for myself, that open-mindedness, that ability to have a growth mindset, which we know from our other discussions earlier, is so fundamental. And I just really anchor into this about capacity, because I do believe every single person has so much capacity that we don't tap into, that they don't tap into themselves. So what are your thoughts on this? And it's connecting that whole need of knowing self to our self-esteem, and knowing that we have the capacity, we're growing, we're evolving, and we're not fixed.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And I do want to say here that when I jumped into the research, it was very difficult to find female theorists because so many of them are or were males. And so, you have these great, 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 great men that have offered so much to so many disciplines and niche, as we call it. But Martha Nussbaum is one of those that, came forward and said, we have to make people autonomous. We can teach them, we can take children just so far, we can take employees just so far, but we've got to teach the person how to fish. We can't just keep giving them the fish. We've got to teach them how to do it, so to speak. So this capacity theory becomes so important because we just want sustainability. We want the next generations to pick this up and become autonomous and be empowered and inspired by those of us who came before them.
I just love that. There's so much that we could dive into, but we're honoring the book and kind of moving through that. But there's just so much as a leader to understand in what you just shared and what we shared this far is that we stand on the shoulders of these giants. They've helped inform our ability to really lead in our niche, and I think that's one thing that we're honoring through this chapter is to understand them and then go back in and learn a little bit more about their theories, because knowledge is power. Knowledge helps inform ourselves. And I think that's the most important piece. So let's kind of continue our conversation. We've been, started with beautiful Maslow and all that. We're building on the social theory, we're building on capacity theory. Now we're kind of bringing this across not only our lives, but our career spans in lifespan development. So Sujata, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of take us through some of these next kind of level theorists, just to invite people into that learning.
Sure. Well, work is everything. You need to work to pay your bills, for self-esteem, for your family, for everything. So we had to bring career theory into this chapter, and there are so many contributors: Frank Parsons, Donald Super, John Holland's theory. John Crumboltz, Nancy Schlossberg. Again, you have these men, and yay for that woman who hangs in there and
stands up. I'm doing this.
Right. So Nancy Schlossberg, who's still alive, and she was the president a long time ago, president of the National Career Development Association. And then you have currently you have Mark Savickas, who has a storytelling model. And incidentally, that is the model that we have integrated in this book, because Sandra and I both share our stories through 4 essential questions. So we're really encouraging people in the workplace to get to know each other, the teammates, but also we encourage leaders and managers to know your people, who they are individually, know what their needs are, know what they're good at, what are their interests, their goals, and so forth. So this chapter is going to be expanded throughout the coming chapters.
Oh, and I love that. And, the interesting piece, I keep thinking about us as individuals. And one thing that I love that we shared in the book, Sujata, was the ocean theory on personality, because there's so many different personalities and different things that I know when I was learning and growing and, sharing this with you as well in the leadership capacity. Even having this understanding, this acronym was like not life-changing for me as a leader to kind of look and evaluate for myself. And can we share a little bit about that ocean theory? I think it's pretty cool. And I think the listeners would find value in at least us offering it. It's in the book, but I love to have that offered today. And then we'll kind of move forward a little bit after that.
Sure. So, the really great part about this book, guys, is that we're connecting the dots. We don't want you to just say, well, there's a theory over here, there's a theory over here. We want you to use the theories. We want you to use this great information to connect the dots in who you are and where you're going. So understand there's two things. There's the temperament that you're born with, and then there's the personality. So the personality, the temperament that's underlying doesn't change. Okay, so they're either you're going to be an easy baby or a difficult baby or a slow to warm up baby. And so that's like you're born with that kind of stuff. That's nature versus nurture type things. And but the personality up here is fluid. So this ocean model that they discovered here, I want you to link it to extroversion and introversion. So the OCEAN, how open are you? How conscientious are you? How extroverted are you? How able are you? And how neurotic are you? The N for neuroticism, of anxiety, worrying, that sort of thing is also in there. But here's the thing, that there's a really good tip in this book. Anything that comes up like this from OCEAN, I want you to think from 0 to 10, where am I? So if you take the openness, how open am I today or for this situation? Do the same thing for CEAN. How worried am I? Is it a 5? Is it a 10? Is it a 2? So this is the self-discovery, the self-evaluation is a day-to-day process. You don't really, quote unquote, arrive. It's just you're evolving because it's physics. Change is constant. And Sandra is the change expert, so she knows that, how this works. Change is constant, so we have to evolve with that change.
Thank you, Sujata. And one of the really great things, again, especially for this episode, that I really want us to hone in, and thank you for reminding those, and welcome everyone who's listening live and those who are listening later. We just so have such great gratitude to you and for your time, to show up today. And we're always wanting to bring value, and that's a purposeful use of the terms. And so as we're sharing, we're wanting to share what's also in the book. So grounding in our Activate Success tips, tools, and insights to be a leader in your niche. But then the important application and the valued part is, what can you take away now, today, and go and do it? And think about your own leadership. So when you hit Monday tomorrow, you're like, oh, let me think about that ocean model. Like, this is application that you can take and go and do. And I think that for us is the most important thing. We're not just here to share and, spout off all these things. It's like, how does that apply to me as a leader right now in my life? And again, I thank you, Sujata, because this is your beautiful wheelhouse. And I shared earlier on in the kind of the starting up of this, for me to embrace, to welcome, to bring into my heart, to really ground in, I love good information because it's informative, but I also have to be true to who I am. And so one of the cool things that we did bring with the book is a whole bunch of wonderful, different, unique leadership styles, the theories that you can then go and action out in your different circumstances, in your niche, in your leadership capacity that you have. So I wanted to share a little bit, Sujata, for kind of the book and how we have constructed all these lovely different chapters and what does each leadership style offer us as leaders? And again, I reiterate and kind of come back to that these are invitations for you to see there's different leadership styles that you can actually bring to your world. So the first one, which is near and dear to me, is conscious leadership. And that's really, again, I'm just going to go through a little bit of a list and kind of what it means and what it can do. And then you will have that opportunity through the book to learn how to, we have a whole chapter with lots of great information, some key theorists, and then we give you some good questions to apply. So the first one, and jump in anytime, Sujata, because there's a little bit of a list and I don't want to be too lengthy, but I want to do the right due diligence on this. So conscious leadership is, for me, the fundamental truth that we all have to aspire to bring into our own leadership. And what is conscious? It's our ability to lead ourselves, isn't it? And to lead others. Because if we're not consciously right here to be able to manage our emotions, be able to be present right now and have that situational awareness, guess what? Other things are going to lead us. They're going to guide us. And we're not going to be consciously aware of what's happening. And I just want to stop in that moment and just say, for me, this is the fundamental, what all leaders need to aspire or at least embrace is conscious leadership. What are your thoughts on that, Sujata, just briefly?
Absolutely, Sandra, because, and we brought this leadership style to you first. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we put it right next to the ego-centered leadership so that you can see that comparison, that juxtaposition of what works and the style that's just really not working, and especially with the newer generations. So there's rhyme and reason to the way that we have brought you these leadership styles. But we wanted to start off with conscious leadership because it's of the utmost importance, and perhaps it's the one that people need to strive for.
Yeah, and I agree, Sujata. And so as we're going through this, and as we're just kind of, as I'm going to be going through these, just kind of listing out some of these great leadership styles. Yeah, some may resonate. Some may go, hey, I that's me, or this kind of makes sense to me, or I haven't thought about that. And there's some new ones that are really emerging that I think are very powerful. And there is that dichotomy between a conscious leader and an egoic leader. And the egoic leader, guess what, has no awareness and is really fixated on themselves and perhaps you've had that experience in your own lived experiences of working for or with someone who leads in that egoic way, and that they have no control. And that's versus a control, conscious, present leader versus your egoic leader who is just out for themselves. And that's my words as I kind of captured those pieces for me in my own personal experience. The next one, I think, which is well known across all leaders, is the transformational leadership. And this is the one that really inspires others to follow the way. They have a shared vision. And again, it is that aspirational aspect. I think that many leaders will use this leadership style because it is that way to move people forward. But the how, and in some circumstances, we need a different kind of leadership style, which is that pace setter. And for some people, and how we define pace setter, that's the ability to really activate, to be able to move your leaders, be able to move individuals with their skills beyond their capacity in a way, in the right direction, at a pace. It's all about the pacing, that they're able to reach their deadlines and achieve their goals in that expedited or timely fashion. And so I think that's the power of understanding, where are these applicable? How could I use these in my existing world? So again, we're just kind of going through, just giving you a few little examples and things like that. The other one that, and I have a little bit of a list, so I am going to be up and down a little bit just to make sure I cover them all. So just to give a reminder here on those. The next one, which I think is also powerful. So we have that pace setter who's really, again, focusing on moving the group. They're directing themselves at a pace that's a little bit quicker. It's more focused. It's more intentional. Then there's also the action-centered leader. What's the difference? Well, the action-centered leader really works closely with the managers, and they have high expectations for their teams. And one of the things about that is about the task completion. So it's very much task achievement, goals, things like that, that is the action-centered. So it's the achievement. Sujat, I'm going to pop over to you, and in your experience in working with in the counseling world in workplaces, do you see leaders actually utilizing the action-centered leadership style?
Yes, exactly. And, this list that Sandra's going through, these are the chapters that are coming after that chapter 4, theories chapter. And that's what we wanted to give you a little glimpse on what's coming in the next podcasts and how we did chapters 5 through 12. So that's why it kind of seems like a listing here, but we definitely wanted you to see why we did it this way. Now, I want you to come really close to me, guys, because this is really important, and I'm going to get really close to you here. We just don't want people to go to the boss and complain about their teammates. It's not a good post-pandemic behavior. Through the empathy ethic, we want you to set the pace and get the actions and tasks going by helping each other. You see, we're bringing a different approach, a different viewpoint to you here. And this is really key. Whatever style of leadership that's working for you, want you to keep in mind that working is not about complaining. Working is about helping your teammates to get there. You see, nobody lost anything by giving. You don't lose by giving. You just don't. And leaders, by the same token, give credit where credit is due. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I felt it. I think it's beautiful. Thank you from your heart to everyone who's listening up close and personal. So I'm bringing it back here. But it is. I mean, and thank you for that reframe as well, because again, we're not here just to spout information. It's like, how have we structured this? How has the book been structured? And there's very purposeful and intentional, so that you can take this back and you can apply all of these opportunities, all of these leadership styles, depending on your unique niche. And I think that's what is such a great resource. This book is a resource because you can tap into it and go into any of these different styles, trial it on, put it on, embrace it, and then see the results and evaluate. And we'll talk about evaluative leadership later, but it's really a powerful resource for all these different ways. And Sujata was talking about the importance of post-pandemic world and how we're shifting in our leadership. We're more connected than ever. And, we talked about transformation, which is inspirational, but the most important thing, though, is having a global-minded leadership. Ooh, that's for some is like, what do you mean by that? Dr. Sujata and Sandra, what do you mean by global-mindedness? And there's so much that you can unpack within global-mindedness. And for me, and I'm reflecting, I see myself reflecting on this. The most important thing, even how we've come together, is it's a strategic, it's an alliance. We're partners, but it's an alliance. So asking ourselves, who else, how can we build these strategic alliances? There's such diversity within our global world, and most of those people are represented in our organizations. They're represented in our teams. And so we have to become even more global minded. And what we mean by that is there's so much uniqueness. We talked about schema before. individuals come with their own set of their biology, their psychology, all their spirit, all those different aspects of themselves, their cultural, to our workplace. So how do we work with individuals from all these different diverse backgrounds? The different ways of engaging, communicating is really understanding that global minded. And now we have some really beautiful things. We talk about global and different things. So I don't know, Sujata, I mean, this is also really important working. And I just wanted to, do you want to jump in on that? Because I think that local for me is cool. So let's unpack that a little bit, and then we can keep moving forward.
So, this workplace is so diverse. And we're talking about, immigrants who have come here for a better life, just like my folks and I did. And so the workplace is really filled with a lot of cultures. And, being open-minded to learn, to be curious about those cultures and what's acceptable in their culture, what's not acceptable in their culture, their norms and so forth, and how that can integrate into what we do in the Western hemisphere is so important. And the pandemic, honestly, it just showed everybody how small this world is. This whole world came together to help each other through this major crisis. Whereas before, people are just like, oh yeah, China's over there, India's over there. Yes, you're over there. I'm over here with my first world issues, And that cannot be the new normal. So the new normal, as we move towards it, must encompass global mindedness and also an empathetic ethic towards sustainability.
Yes, and that's why we have, our big emphasis on sustainability is one of our main pillars of sustainable impact. And so it's bringing in that diversity, it's bringing in that understanding of myself and that self-discovery, understanding how we're all going through this change and how to prepare for change, moving through change. And so think of your own leadership and your circumstances. Everything's always changing. So are there circumstances that you could, even just hearing these types of leadership styles, go, oh, wait a second, have I considered, as an example, that other person's diverse voice? Have I actually invited them in? Or do I need to be, perhaps for this one, more action-centered? I need to really focus on the goals and get everyone working together. There's more. There's always more in this book. And so as we're bringing this forward, in some circumstances, we need to, as leaders, take a hands-off approach or a laissez-faire type of approach. And it's interesting because when we put that in the book, I found it was interesting because some people are like, oh, you actually laissez-faire? What do you mean? Oh, hands-off? What? and there's a place for it, though, Sujata. Like, I've had circumstances where I have a high-performing team, and you know what? You need to trust. You need to not micromanage. You need to allow them to do the good work. And this is highly effective when you have a high-performing, high-capacity team who has this expertise. They're unconsciously competent, and they can go and do. And I think this is the power of learning when and where to apply these types of opportunities in this post-pandemic world. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll have people signaling you and telling you things like, I got this.
Yeah, got it.
I'll come to you if I have any questions, but I got this.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because, I can only reflect on some of my current circumstances when I was, in the work that I'm doing currently. And the tendency, and this is why we did earlier on the egoic leader, what happens when you're faced with some of these circumstances? You have a choice. And for an egoic leader, they may say, oh, no, it's my way. I need to direct this. I need to do these things, versus saying, hey, wait a second. Let's kind of observe ourselves through self-discovery, because we know who we are. And I can actually say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to let them go and do it because they're highly capable and competent. See how these all kind of work together? It's just bringing all of this new vocabulary or reinforcing it, that there are options, there's choices we can make as leaders in this post-pandemic world. Because at the end, we go back into that middle piece, that conscious leadership. The more self-aware we are, the better our relationships. And that's why we brought in relationships earlier on. The other new one, which I wanted to bring in, I just want to respect the time, we're doing pretty good this morning, is around co-elevation leadership. Now, this is a new kind of Farazi brought forward thinking. I've seen it working well. And I love co-elevation. I think it's where we come together. And the theorist really has said, this is where we, again, come together, we co-create, we ideate, we bring in ideas together, irrespective of hierarchy. And from that ideation, so much goodness can happen. And it comes from that openness, but also the empathy ethic, as we say, that we're being empathetic, we're also being open to others' ideas. And the co-elevation is very, very powerful. It really heightens the possibility of new ideas to come forward. And I think this is a growing opportunity for leaders to bring into their leadership today. Have you seen it working? What are your thoughts on that one, Sujata?
Absolutely, especially with the younger generations. They really are so integrated in social media and connections. And so they know what connections are. And it becomes very easy, much easier to them. And so this collaboration piece and this effective communication piece through activities is a real thing for the newer generations.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, because we have so many generations in our workplace right now, and you know, I see that daily, and just some of the amazing abilities that the younger generation are bringing into the workplace. It's astonishing. Like they're so fluid and fast in the connections that they can make and their abilities with processing. And as a leader of a different generation, it's like, I embrace it. I'm like, okay, let's support each other. Let's work in our strengths. And again, I go back to Maslow's, because our needs have been met. So we're, again, going back, we're connecting those beautiful dots, and why we've kind of structured everything together. Got lots of hands going today, and I love that. And, you know, but there's an and a but. What we do, we need to evaluate and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, is the need for evaluation. And this kind of, again, I always share my story. The greatest learnings I've had most recently in sharing my story is really, truly focusing on evaluation, doing what we need to do, but making sure what we're doing is the right thing. And I'm not putting a construct around right being a certain way, but really evaluating what we're doing, measuring it, you know, making sure that our actions are purposeful. I don't know if you've had this experience, Sujata, but I've been in like meetings and other things where you're kind of getting a spinning treadmill. You're just like going around in a circle, or like a hamster in a wheel. And if we always do the same things we've always done, guess what? We always get the same results. So I think we need to stop, observe, engage, and reflect on these things, and bring in more solid evaluations. And in the book, there's powerful tools and opportunities that you can go and try them out. Like I absolutely love the different tools that we've brought into here. Because remember, we do tips, tools, and insights. I always want to bring us back into that piece. So if you want to learn more about evaluative leadership style, go into the book and really explore, and then go and try these different ones on. Any thoughts you want to say about evaluation? Because I know, obviously, as a scientist, this is always important.
Exactly. You know, this is all about data.
Yeah.
And measurement. And, you know, what are you seeing? What's in front of you? We bring you a powerful tool, the Johari window.
Mhm.
That goes so well into evaluation because the four quadrants of what I see about myself, what I know about myself, what other people see in me that I can't see. These are all very important components of evaluation for self-discovery, for change readiness, and for impact.
Mhm.
So, we've taken you through these chapters, but at the very end is the evaluation part. We're saying, look at the data in front of you, about your team, and about your company. Now, we did debate, like, should we have the evaluative last or should we have the hope last? And, somebody might say, why didn't you have the evaluation as the last chapter? But
we changed that though. We had decided changing it because we have to always. For me, this is my hope side. I got to jump in on this one because for us, like hope, we have to have hope. And I'm using that word because we look at everything, even if we have an untoward thing happen to us, hope, sustainability, courage, the strength, the resilience to come on up and emerge. And I think that's the power of hope. And if you're, as an example, like, working and doing a lot of contract work in healthcare, so much hope is needed because there's so much complexity in the work that we're doing. Transforming in healthcare is huge, hard work. But the language we use around it, excuse me, is purposeful and powerful. And I get a little choked up because, people give of themselves so much. And the essence of us as leaders is having that connection inside ourselves. We always begin that in the self-discovery and having the hope and the knowledge. And that's why we shared our stories and the capacity for us to lead, to grow together and to activate success, to build that momentum. And each of these chapters, and I'll turn it over to you, Sujata, in just 2 seconds, there's 2 activators that are attached to each. So we've just been going through some of these great chapters here, but there's actually 27 activators. Even if you just go out and do those activators and focus on them, you're going to activate success. So back to you, Sujata.
Thank you. Yes, so beautifully put, Sandra. Those activators, we get you started, we get you activated because sometimes people don't know where to start. They've read a chapter, they've read a book, but now what do I do? So there's no question, this book is a resource. We give you the tips, tools, insights. We give you those activators. If you don't know where to start, you start with those activators to find what works for you and link it to what we just said an hour ago. All of this hope theory, we want you to build capacity in people. Give hope to your people that they can do what they were hired to do.
Yes. I have to say that. And again, I just want to thank those who've been listening, those who will listen to this on the recording. These are just tools. These are not, well, they're beyond tools. It's a way of being. It's a way of leading that is required. And I'm using that word required because we've changed. Our world has changed. There's so much more change. There's so much more demands on us as leaders. And the more we can understand ourselves with those 4 essential questions, I'm going to loop this kind of back and then kind of ask you to kind of connect the dots in a second here, Sujata, is for you right now is taking that reflection, taking that moment to really see yourself clearly and knowing, like Sujata says, where are you today? And do you have a roadmap to move forward to your future, wherever you want to go? In my project world, I go current state to future state. And so letting go of the past, that's done. You're going into the gray zone, which is the unknown, the uncertainty, into a new future state where you want to go. So we got to go through this. This book helps you go through that. It's particularly of ease through that gray zone and will help you achieve and activate your success on that outcome. So Sujata, from your perspective. Let's connect some of these dots from all of the theorists that we've talked about. We've provided an invitation for people to learn a little bit more about, and particularly how it's anchored into the book.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We bring you our stories very first thing in this book of who we are, where we're going, how we get there, and how we stay there. Those 4 essential questions. And we bring ourselves to you because we want you to do the same thing, excuse me, through the workbook. This workbook will take you from your chapter 1 to your chapter 15, whatever that.
I gotta show it. One moment. I gotta show. Here's our workbook. There we go.
So, we're giving you things that are going to help you to get there and help you to stay there. You have needs. And so Maslow tells you what those needs are. So focus on those and see how you can improve those through building capacity that we just discussed through Martha Nussbaum. Understand that who you are, where you're going, how you get there, and how you stay there is all affected through your ecosystem and what influences you. Connect that to Bronfenbrenner's theory. So the individual self leads constantly through change. Your viewpoint that you bring to the table are opportunities for communication, for learning, and for unlearning. So the themes in this book, the empathy ethic, the theory connections, the new normal principle, and also each chapter, every chapter that Sandra mentioned has effective communication and conflict resolution solutions.
Thank you. And I just noted I want to do a quick shout out to our friend Paul McFarland, who says, foundational guidance to help anyone reground and anchor in what makes you ultimately you, and then grow and magnify the best of you. Thank you so much, Paul, for leaving a comment on our live. I very much appreciate that. And so as we wrap it up, we have about 3 minutes here to, kind of conclude this segment. And we'll be coming back in a couple days to do our next segment, which will be our next chapter, which is quite exciting. So we've kind of laid this foundation, which we have. And I want to invite you, whatever niche you're in, to take the next step, to challenge yourself, to open that door to possibility. And as Sujata says, to learn, to unlearn, to bring in more knowledge into your own leadership, to bring in opportunities to trial new things, and to view life as a new way to activate success. And I think that's a key. We have right now this wonderful opportunity to use some evidence, to go back, and why we've done this chapter is to ground everything in evidence, scientific. We call this work science because it is work science. Yes. Our workplace is work science. So having that knowledge, having the grounding, and then going and applying this and experiencing it firsthand for ourselves, and taking the uncertainty. Remember, I talked about that change piece, the uncertainty, the uncomfortableness, which is where we grow the most, which is important to reflect on as well, and to really understand what to do and how to do it, grounded in these empirical theorists. And Sujata, anything else you wanted to add before I do the last kind of closeout?
Yes, absolutely. The scientific method is globally accepted, and it gives us a language that's evidentiary, that's reliable and valid to bring all of these principles to the world.
Thank you, Sujata. An awesome summary. So how you can get the book or the workbook, here we go, is go to Amazon and put in Activate Success. We are there. We're an international best-selling book. Yay! So excited for that. And we continue to touch lives and to grow. It comes in Kindle, paperback, and hard copy, which is amazing. It's around the globe. So wherever you are, and please make sure you leave a wonderful review. This really helps to support and validate the book and its positive impact. And you can also go to our website at www.activate-success.com and learn a little bit more about us, learn a little bit more about the book. And we will be back in a couple of days. And we thank you for your time, your attention. Importantly, take action now, because you can. Go to Amazon, pick up the book, and we look forward to hearing your Activate Success stories. Bye for now. Thank you.